Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Crystal and I am going to talk to you today about the North Carolina real estate offer to purchase and contract. You can look at this offer to purchase and contract and pretty much put it across the board in any state, because to have a legal contract you must have 3 considerations. So let's first go over what those considerations are. The first consideration is, number 1, you must have an offer, which means that if you see a house that you like, you must make an offer to actually, start the process of purchasing that house. So an offer has to be made. And then number 2, you must have consideration, which is something of value that you're exchanging for said property. Usually when we're in these circumstances is money. So we see the buyer is trying to obtain a loan to purchase the home, and the seller has the property as the considerations that will be exchanged. So offer, consideration, and then number 3 is acceptance, that the seller and the buyer must both be in agreement or acceptance of what is being offered and what is being given in conclusion to the offer, in order for it to be a legally binding contract. So with that being said, you must have these 3 considerations. Now let's get into the offer and what is actually in the offer. And these are the things that I go over with my buyers and sellers, because they're important things that you have to point out. So number 1, you must have an offer price. And of course you already know what you can offer, because you've been to a lender at this point and they told you, your price range, where you should be. You should have been speaking to them about your affordability and where you would be as far as your monthly payment, because just because you're approved for a certain amount does not mean that you should max out at that amount as far as house shopping, because you also want to consider not being house poor. There's things that come up, there's things that you would have to save for, there's home repairs. So you don't want to actually go to your max. You want to make sure that you're discussing with your lender where you're going to be comfortable, but that's a whole nother video. So purchase price. And then after your purchase price, what I always prepare my clients for is to be able to put down some type of due diligence or earnest money. Now these are 2 different fees that work 2 different ways, but similar in the same aspect. So what due diligence is you're actually giving the seller a deposit to take their property off of the market for a certain amount of time in order for you to complete your inspections. And usually this comes with a due diligence fee that's given directly to the seller. If you as the buyer decide to renege or pull out of the contract for any reason that is not the seller's fault, then you renege that due diligence and the seller is able to keep that deposit. Whereas earnest money is a good faith deposit. It's a good faith deposit that will be left with the escrow agent or attorney to say, hey, in response to me wanting to purchase your house, I'm willing to give you this amount of money or put it as a deposit, so to show my willingness and my that I earnestly want to purchase your house. Now if you decide to close on the property, the due diligence and the earnest money fee goes towards your closing costs. Unlike the due diligence, if you decide not to close on the property, then the seller gets to keep that for their inconvenience and you going into their property, doing inspections and everything else that you have to do in your due diligence. But the earnest money, you're able to get that back if you decide to pull out of the contract for any reason, because that's held with the attorney. So keep that in mind whenever you do go to a property and you find it. How much money are you willing to put up for due diligence? Because that is something that you're actually not going to see again if you decide not to close. That's something that you pretty much have to just count as lost. I've only gotten due diligence back 1 time for a buyer, and that was due to the seller's fault for a very good reason. They didn't go through on that purchase. But anyway, take that into consideration. So you're going to need your due diligence and earnest money. Your escrow agent, which is your law firm. This is your law firm that is going to be closing for you. They're going to be doing your title search. They're going to be pulling your taxes in. They're going to be getting information from the mortgage company if you're a seller. I choose the selling attorney or the buyer, the closing attorney, because I do work with them so frequently. A lot of times your agent will too, if they, you know, have a good relationship. But if you know someone, you know, you're at liberty as the buyer or the seller to choose, because you're paying for it anyway. Another important part is the settlement date. When is the date that you're actually going to close? Normally in North Carolina, it takes about 30 to 45 days to close on a property, depending on the type of loan that you get. So it's important before even writing the contract that you speak with your lender to know, okay, am I in this time frame to close? And they'll pretty much let you know how much time to include, if it will be a 30, or normally if you're using USDA loans, that's 45 days. So you already know off the bat when you're making an offer, tie that 45 days into it so that you'll know. And a lot of times if you're getting anything like down payment assistance, you know, you have to factor that time in for those sources to be able to do what they have to do to make sure that your loan is closed as well. So I would definitely lender's advice on your settlement date, because the offer to purchase contract does have 2 weeks or 14 days, so that, you know, if you were to go over that day, then you're not in void of the contract, because it does give you that time within the contract. Another good point to make, whenever you're going into a property, there's going to be personal property and there's going to be property that, you know, there's going to be personal property. Personal property usually includes things like the refrigerator. When going into a property to visit a property, you should actually be doing some due diligence in the property at the same time that you're looking at it. A lot of things that I look for when I go in with buyers is I look at the ceiling to, you know, see if there's any brown spots or anything, because that would be an indication that there was a roof leak somewhere. So, you know, look at the floors, like feel the joints if it has wood floors, like if you see any creaky spaces or anything that doesn't seem right. Those are things that you will want to take into consideration while you're thinking about making an offer, because if you have to offer due diligence, then you also have to take those things into consideration. And then also going over the property disclosure with your agent. A lot of times sellers are not advised to put anything in the property disclosure because it is a buyer beware state, and I know in North Carolina. So anything that is not a material fact, the seller does not have to, you know, disclose. That's for you to find out. So just make sure that you go into the house and you look for things like, you know, those spots on the ceilings, whatever. If there's any water leaks, look under the cabinets so that you'll know what you're up against at first. You know, that will give you a good indication of like the health of the house, because you don't want to lose any money. So personal property usually includes things that can actually be just removed out of the home without any issues. Like you're not taking any nails out the wall. You don't have to like take something down and it's gonna cause damage. So personal property will be like a stove range, microwave, refrigerator, things that need to be in the contract, because if they're not in the contract, then, you know, the seller doesn't have to leave it because it's not in the contract. So make sure that you're writing those items down in the contract. A lot of times your agent can go by the MLS cut sheet to see what is included and what is not. So before an offer is written, then you can ask for those things. The agents can have conversations and those things can be worked out before an offer is written. So special assessments is another thing, and this is something that your attorneys and your agents should do during the due diligence period. That just means that if someone is coming or the city is coming and they're gonna, you know, rerun lines or rerun sewage and pipes or whatnot, will you have to pay for that assessment after you know, move into the home? And those are things that you should know up front, because a lot of times it's really costly to move into a house and then to find out on the whim that you have an assessment when those things could have been found out in your due diligence period. So I would say that these are the most important parts of a real estate contract, and the things that you need, the three elements, the three considerations that you need, which is offer, consideration, and acceptance, in order to make a viable and executable real estate contract. I hope this video has helped. These are things that I explain on an everyday basis to buyers and sellers, but on video it doesn't really translate because I'm getting used to video. So if you have any questions, or you didn't really understand anything, or you want me to do another video to re-explain, please feel free to leave it in the comments, because every day I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to give you guys more information, because I have been doing this over 20 years. But like I said, it's different from having a consultation than, you know, transferring it to video. So I hope this has helped you a lot. Continue to come back, because I'm going to continue to come back, and I'm going to continue to get better at giving you guys and passing you guys information, because I have a well of information from being in real estate for so long and working with acquisition companies, investors, regular home buyers, and just learning the craft myself. And I would like to teach you, because there's so many scams and different things when it comes to real estate. So I want to teach people what I know to make sure that they can do it right and see it as an investment, and see it as something that can, you know, catapult their portfolio wherever they want it to go. So until the next time, be blessed, because remember, you are blessed, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video.